Hello and welcome to a brand new series. We'll be exploring a whole bunch of topics that can help you navigate from student life to your career. To kick off this series, I've invited a very special guest, Kat Del Rosario.
Lie down with me and hold me in your arms.
And we'll be exploring a bunch of questions that we both wrestled with in the beginning of our undergrad. To kick it off in today's episode, we'll be discussing how we landed the first internship. Before we dive in, I think you should do a little introduction about yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Hold on. Cheers to that, Kat.
Okay. Hello, I'm Katrina, another Katrina, yes. I am currently in fourth year, entering fifth in marketing. And outside of, the business realm, I'm someone who loves people. I'm community oriented. I'd say like since I was younger, especially in elementary school, I could already tell that everyone has a story. Everyone has some kind of background to their name. And that's why going into solder and especially in business school, I always came in with that stereotype that business equals money. And that totally wasn't it. It's not about profitability. I think how you make returns is simply by understanding people and understanding how people work. And I'm interested in that field of bringing business with people and bringing communities with profit. And I'm so excited to share what you have in store for us, Kat. You bring in your questions. I hate intros.
I'll do an intro too, so you don't feel alone. So I'm also going into my fifth year. I'm studying accounting and supply chain, and like Katrina, I also went into university having a preconceived notion of what business school was like and thinking that I probably didn't belong there because, I wasn't super ambitious and knew what I wanted, and I thought everyone did. But then I came to realize that business school is kind of teaching you how to work with others and how to contribute back to society, not in a way where you always have to make bank, like be an investment banker type of thing. You can go into nonprofits, you can be your own entrepreneur. It took some time to kind of realize this, but yeah, hopping into our first question then. Thank you for your intro, Kat. Landing the first internship. I know that was probably really stressful for all of us, literally in first and second year. How was the journey for you? Like, where did you work first and how did you get to that first job?
For sure. My first internship was at a marketing agency. It was a startup marketing agency through UBC Solder's internal hiring platform. It's called MyTax. But I actually, before that, I was just so afraid of internships and thinking within marketing and overall thinking like, oh, I need to have a brand internship in order to feel successful. I need to have even in accounting, it's like having that big four internship in order to get in. But I realized for myself, like, if there's an opportunity and you're kind of starting off in whatever specialization you are, go for it. And for me, I realized like when you start an agency within marketing, I didn't realize how much I learned because I applied. I kind of went in going, oh, it seems like the culture, the people seem very nice and outspoken. And my supervisor, his name was Michael, one of the best supervisors you could ever have. And in terms of like the actual application process, I learned that it's okay to be a little bit afraid to step in, take risks, because you never know at the end of the day if you'll actually enjoy the company or not. I think it's also understanding that you can't have so many preconceived notions of something, because if you just go in with stereotypes within an internship, within an interview, within even the person that you're speaking with, it might get out of line and your stereotypes fall out of place with reality. So yeah, that's something I went in with my experience.
I completely agree, or can relate to the no brand, no good mentality, where I was so picky when I was in first and second year and only applying to these big brand names. Like I only applied to CPG companies, like Procter and Gamble, Smuckers, all those places. And I thought if I didn't get a job there, then, you know, I was not gonna make it out by the end of it. But by thinking that, I think I really lost out on some opportunities for bigger leadership roles in smaller size companies. So like in my first internship, sort of internship, like I worked for Evo CarShare, which is based in Vancouver. And like I would say they're a smaller mid-sized company. They've grown over the years, but back then they were smaller. And at first I kind of went in there, I'm like, okay, it's just another job. But I was given so many responsibilities that I was able to then kind of leverage and talk about in my future job interviews. So I think for younger students, knowing that you can find value in essentially any job that you go into, it has a lot to do with your attitude and your personal goals. Like what do you want to gain from this experience? It doesn't necessarily matter whether you work for a big brand name or not, because your experiences, no matter where you are, matter for your next job. So yeah, so not being super choosy for your first internship. Literally, I ended up in accounting, but when I was at Evo, I was working in marketing and doing like B2B communication stuff, and it was super different, but it helped build my communication skills, which can be translated literally anywhere. So just go in there and don't just apply for your investment banking job. I always use the term like investment banking example because I think a lot of business students think that's the only job, you know, or consulting.
Yeah, and I think even stepping in as like when I was in first year or second year, when I was like choosing my specialization, choosing exactly what job it is to get into, I think it's not just understanding like what course is like gives me strength versus like the weakness part, but also like what outside of business am I passionate about, like understanding like the different industries. And I think one mistake I might have made in first year is not doing enough understanding of, okay, I like sports marketing, or I like music marketing, or even, you know, like within finance or accounting, being able to do some research on different companies, because at the end of the day, a lot of times I thought like, oh, okay, this person is in this internship, or you know, this person is in like a large name internship. That's what I should be applying to. But I realized like, no, like why am I comparing myself and what I should be doing from what other people are doing? However, it's more so like I should be taking on roles or applying for roles that I'm actually interested in. So I think that whole comparison game in my first and second year was something I should have. I look back, I don't regret, because I'm like, now I learned, but definitely a learning opportunity that I'm now going on with my next year.
I think that brings us to another really important question, is how much of your previous experiences contributed to finding your first job? Like, did you think you had to do a certain business type of experience, like joining a UBC accounting club in order to get your internship? Or did you find that pursuing your own passions differentiated you and made you stand out more as an applicant in that way? Do you have any tips on that, or share your experience for it?
I think two parts. The first part is I kind of took a leap of faith and took a risk with volunteering and just attempting something new by saying yes to a group that had asked me to do some sort of like marketing challenge for 5 weeks. And it was a 5-week campaign to support a nonprofit organization. And that was actually the summer before I actually started at that internship. I had no idea what advertising was online. I thought it was just like, okay, all you do is like throw a picture out there, someone will click it, it'll be all good. But I said yes to that opportunity. And because of, taking that leap of faith and taking a risk, I ended up getting that internship because of that volunteer position, being able to learn Google Ads, how to understanding like these like digital advertising acronyms like ROAS. I'm like, what the heck is ROAS? Like,
ROAS?
what is CPC? Huh? But you just get it. You just start understanding once you take in that leap of faith. And I think that part, like volunteering or reaching out to like a small business or a nonprofit if they need any support. And who knows, down the line, they might give you a role. But I'm not saying like, don't take a full-time volunteer position. Like that's a big no-no. Like if there's like maybe like 2 hours a week, definitely like one piece of advice for that. And then the other one is like, depending on what industry you're interested in. For me, my marketing certificates really pulled through with my position. I took Google Analytics certifications as well as HubSpot certifications. And kid you not, there are so many free certifications you can take online. We all think that like, okay, as long as I have a degree, I'm Gucci gangs, life is good. But it's like, no, there's so many things online that, again, really taking that leap of faith. Once you start and once you push yourself, you'll get like the position that you want.
I think what I noticed from what you just said is that you were doing all these things but out of like your own passion. I know lots of people, they volunteer just because, you know, they think it looks good, but you were pursuing things that you're genuinely interested in and could supplement your knowledge and make you like more knowledgeable. So yeah, I think definitely that is something to keep in mind for younger students, is that you can do all these things like volunteer and work for a good company, but if your heart's not in it, like you're not really going to grow, and you're not going to put yourself in a position to better yourself,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. Definitely like with going in with passion and not like words on a resume. I think that's a huge part. And not just passion, but you know, like not passion in terms of like my hobbies or, you know, sports, that kind of passion we think about, but also the passion and the willingness to learn. Because I think for myself in first and second year, I thought learning was like, okay, if I finish this book and I finish this exam, you know, on Canvas or for one of my courses, that's learning. No, it's not like that's more so like getting a number on a transcript, you know? I think the biggest part of like learning and passion is when you're like, I actually want to know what CPC is and like apply that to a client. I think there's that like shift in mindset in first and second year from I want to get a 96 to I want to put this knowledge and be able to apply it into an industry or to a client or to a company. And I think that's another mistake I made in especially in first year. I thought that like, okay, as long as I get a degree, I'm okay to go. But it's like, that's my like huge piece of advice. Like life is not a degree. Life is everything outside of the degree, as well as like how much you can balance it within.
Beautifully said. I don't know what else to add to that. Like, very wise, Kat, very wise. Maybe some last tips, I guess, like for landing the first internship. How do you write your cover letter? So in school, like they teach you how to write a cover letter in like at Sauder. But to be honest, I did not really follow any of the templates. And also like when you Google cover letter templates, you do not want to say like, oh, I'm just interested in this like you want to tell your story.
Yeah.
And you want to differentiate yourself by saying things that really matter to you. Like how can you contribute to the role? Not so much like, you know, following a set standard template. I don't know, any other tips, Kat, on how to like write your resume or cover letter? What's your approach?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first step is actually like, don't look at your current resumes. Like, don't just do a copy paste. That's like the number one that I always did. I think like, especially in first year, where I had this set resume and I was like, okay, send, kind of like Oprah going like, here you go. Here's a resume for you. Here's a resume for you. I think it's definitely like customizing it depending on what the company or the organization needs. And that first step is actually looking at the job description and not saying like, okay, oh my gosh, like Lululemon has another posting. boom, like send it off. I think it's really looking at like the requirements, like the specifications, and also on top of that is like, what is the company, what's their team culture, the dynamic, and building that around your resume. I made the big mistake of doing carbon copies, and that's why I got a lot of rejections. But once you really like take a full depth in what the company is, what they want in terms of the role, that's one thing I'd recommend. And the second part is if you potentially have an email of like the recruiter or like anyone, or even like anyone working at the organization or company, spending like a 30-minute call with them, just saying like, hey, I'm interested in what either the role or the company entails. It's not saying like I want the role, but it's again taking that passionate step into learning more about what their purpose is or what the role can play out as.
Kat, I also copied and pasted, and one time I forgot to change the name within the cover letter. So I sent an email to one company, but it was like, I'm interested in this role for blah, blah, blah. It was a completely different one. So obviously I did not hear back. And yeah, what really worked for me was my official internship. Like I wouldn't consider Evo as like an internship because it wasn't like a set 4 months thing, but I was working in the summer. But my first legit internship at Labatt, I did so much research on their culture. I was reading their guiding principles, and I was trying to figure out how I like blend in and how I apply my own my life experiences with their principles, and proving that I aligned with their values, like within my cover letter. And I mean, most of the time, recruiters don't spend more than like a minute reading a cover letter. So you got to make it compelling, but you also got to show that you are aligned with their values. And so that was definitely something that helped me. And also in interviews, I prepared my answers to kind of like revolve around their guiding principles as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even with interviews, another tip there is, like you said, like understanding the principles, understanding how they communicate with each other, but more so, like understanding yourself. I think that's another thing with interviews. I know there's, like preparing for interviews, like you said, but almost all of my interviews have gotten that first question where it's like, tell us about yourself. And that's one where it's like, you can't look up on Google. That's not a quick Google search. And I think, really preparing before the interview is like, how do I see myself in this organization? You can go in as an intern and just kind of be that puppet saying like, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. And I think really like understanding that, like, who am I in this organization? Who can I be in this organization? Really that a little bit of a philosophical approach. But I think if you don't know yourself before entering an interview, and you're just kind of like pulling off like okay, this is what I studied, this is what I'm going to put out. Like, it's not going to be like a genuine interview that you should always have.
That perfectly wraps up like the first question about like how to find the first internship. We kind of gave some tips and shared our own personal experience. So that's episode 1.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
And that's Kat and Kat, K and K, doing a little skitty bop.
Like you wanna be loved, and this feels like falling in love, falling in love, falling in love.